Just catch up with some of the other things that have been going on in the news this morning. Well, next this morning, he's been in the newspapers and on the television just as much in death as he was in life. And now Michael Jackson has finally been laid to rest. The iconic singer died back in June. He was buried in Los Angeles following a private funeral. Looking at the barrage of media coverage that's been given to Michael Jackson since his death, it's struck me that it's very hard to get a sense of what the man was actually like. What was he like to talk to? How did he deal with people? What were his mannerisms? Well, BBC Radio Lincolnshire's Nick Smith has been speaking to a man who knows better than most.
He was the man who brought us some of the most iconic records of the 20th century, and now Michael Jackson has been laid to rest following a private funeral in Los Angeles. The megastar died more than 2 months ago in what police in America are calling homicide caused by a cocktail of prescription drugs. He joins a long list of famous stars to be buried in the Forest Lawn Cemetery in LA, where screen legends such as Humphrey Bogart, Errol Flynn and Clark Gable are also buried. Idolised and shrouded in controversy in equal measure during his life, the circus surrounding Michael Jackson continues to pose more questions than answers, even after his shock passing. So away from all the newspaper reports, television programmes and court cases, what was Michael Jackson actually like?
You know, relatively normal, very polite, and he seemed more interested in you than anything else.
That's Richard Borthwick from Mablethorpe in Lincolnshire. He's interviewed Michael Jackson on a number of occasions, starting in the early 80s when he ran the pop magazine Chartbeat.
I think I first ever spoke to him in about 1983 when he was promoting the record Say, Say, Say. I did an interview with him for a pop magazine that I owned and ran in those times, and he rang and we did a telephone interview, and I found really he asked me more questions than I asked him, really.
Richard then moved out of the magazine industry and didn't expect to hear anything more from Jackson. So he was taken by surprise some years later when he received a call out of the blue.
The very last thing that I did in the millennium was I donated some money to the NSPCC over the internet. It made me the very last person ever in the world to donate money to charity, and it got a lot of coverage all over the world. And one day, about 2 years later nearly, I received a phone call completely out of the blue, and it was Michael Jackson. And he just said, "Hello, is that Richard?" I went, "Yeah." He said, "I saw what you did, donating the money to charity. That was really beautiful, really beautiful." And you just didn't know what to think. You know, you didn't even have a chance to think about it, really. Never ever heard from him again. And it was just totally random and something you just wouldn't have ever expected to happen.
The life and indeed death of Michael Jackson will be forever shrouded in mystery. But Richard Borthwick says his enduring memory of the superstar is one far removed from any sort of controversy.
I just found him to be actually, quite kind and polite and softly spoken and very pleasant. You know, I mean, the persona you had of him in the newspapers and, mostly in the newspapers was of being a bit sort of weird, but he didn't really come across as that weird to me. If anything, he came across as being quite gentle, really. That would be the word I'd use to describe him.
Leave my world so cold. Every day
BBC Radio Lincolnshire's Nick Smith speaking to Richard Borthwick there. And let's hope that Michael Jackson has finally been laid to rest. It's 7:22 now, and I was going to say have a very